The hearth is central to the home. This is evident in phrases like home is where the hearth is, or Ní léinn tin tán mar do hin tán féin. It wasn't just important for the daily jobs around the house, like cooking and washing. It was also a socially important space where songs and stories and things called house visiting were often practiced. Let's go over to Carol to find out more.
To start with, we have to understand that women were the bosses in the house. They were the ones who had to organise and schedule things that were going on, so hopefully it worked like clockwork. One of the most important things in the house was the fire. Some people think it's the most important, and the woman never had to allow the fire to go out because people thought that was unlucky. But it was also practical because if the fire never went out, you could get it going very well, easily. So in the morning, the first thing the lady of the house would do would get the fire going, because what do we want? A cup of tea. And that's what they would have wanted. So maybe the water was a little bit warm to start off with, but she would always have had to remember to get water in the day before, because you just couldn't turn on a tap. There was no water in the house. So people got their waters from something called a spring well. So they would always have drinking water brought in for the spring well to fill the kettle. Now, when she got that going, the kettle would be boiling for the tea, but she would also have to cook the breakfast. So maybe the porridge or the oatmeal was cooked in an iron pot. All the pots were around the fire because there were no cupboards to put them in, and she would have that. What else do we do today? We have to wash our clothes. And usually they did that once a week because you just couldn't put them in a washing machine. How did you do that? Not with the spring well water this time. This time, a lot of houses were built especially near a water source like a stream. And you would either go to the stream to wash your clothes or bring that water, which was heavy, to the house, and then you could wash inside if it was raining and outside if it wasn't raining. To help you do that, you need soap, don't you? This is the kind of soap you would have used for washing a long time ago in Ireland. Doesn't smell very good, but it's good for cleaning. And to help you again, you would have, if you were lucky, a washboard. Now you see this has got ridges on it. It could be made of glass or tin. And you'd put this down here in the wooden bowl, because they were always made of wood, a tub, which would have hot water in it, made hot from the fire. And you'd put the clothes on there, and then you'd rub up and down like this. And in this way, you could get your clothes clean. So I wasn't holding it up, I'd be holding it down in the water. Then you'd have to wring them out by hand, then peg them out to dry. When you'd done that, you'd have to iron them. Now, I have here an iron, and as I'm picking it up, it's quite heavy. Again, that's made of iron. It's called a sad iron. That's not because it's sad, but the sad came from the word solid. And inside this type of iron, see there's a hole there. Guess what this is called? A slug. Now, this slug was put on the fire to get hot, and so was the iron. And then you'd put the slug inside there because this lifts up, and that would help the iron get hot. And you may have more than one slug, so you could keep the iron hot. Now, to do the ironing, you had to make sure that the iron was hot. So you'd spit on it, and if that sizzled, the iron was right for the ironing. But you'd have to make sure, because if it was too hot, it would burn the clothes. And look, there is no dial and there's no lead, because what was there none of? Electricity. And that is heavy to hold, like a lot of the pots around the fire. So you had a lot of muscles if you were a woman working in the house. they had to look after not only the food, but what provided the food. And one thing that provided the food were chickens, because you could get meat from the chickens. But what else do you get? Eggs, don't you? And eggs could be kept to sell as well as use in the house. And with that money, when the ladies went to market, they may be able to keep that money, egg money it was called, so that they could use it to buy things, save up and buy things for the house. Now, the other thing that they did, not in the house but outside of the house, was milk the cow. Some people would bring the milk in and separate it, because they may not have a dairy, but some people did have a dairy, and they would churn it by going up and down in something called a churn, and that would make butter. And then they'd use the other parts that came off the milk for other things that they'd cook with. But that butter was very precious. So precious, they'd make their own mark on the butter when they took it to market. So if you wanted butter from a certain woman, you knew which mark to look at. And that butter, again, would bring money into the house for the women.